All right, man. Welcome to today's episode, How to Be Easier to Love. So, if you want to have a great relationship with your wife, you want her to love you, you want her to feel drawn to you, right? This is what we're going to learn today, how to be someone that's really easy to love, and how to get rid of some of those things that might be making you hard to love. So my name is Mike Frazier, MD. I'm a psychiatrist and marriage coach, and I help high-achieving Christian men have more intimate marriages. All right. So I work with men who are trying to create a better relationship with their wife. So what they want, really what it boils down to, is just a really good mental, emotional, and sexual connection with her. That's really what it is about. Now, what guys often do is they go about this, they try to get this connection by trying to prove something to her. Okay. So, what are they trying to prove? They're trying to prove that they have changed, right? That they're not going to do the same things that they did in the past, that they're not going to have another affair, that they're not going to look at pornography again, that they're not going to get mad at her again or lose their temper, or they're not going to ignore her or prioritize work over her or whatever, right? They're trying to prove that they're a different person now. They're trying to prove that they're sorry for what they did, right? They want forgiveness from their wife. They want trust, right? They want her to trust her again. They're trying to prove that they're not the same person anymore. Look, I'm a new man. This is me, right? I'm not who I used to be. Again, that they can be. What it boils down to is that they can be trusted, right? That the changes they're making, they're sincere. That like they're really someone that's good to be with now, right? They're trying to prove all this to their wife. Okay, that they're a safe person to be with, that they're not going to be manipulative, they're not going to be mean, they're not going to um, one up, try to prove that they're better than their wife, right? All that kind of thing. So usually the way they do this is by telling their wife all this stuff. Look, I'm changed, I'm sorry, I'm a different person, you can trust me, I'm safe, right? And their wife almost always responds in the same way. Okay. Their wife says, don't tell me, show me. Okay? Don't tell me, show me. Show me that you've actually changed, right? So in this, or they can just reject it right out, right? They can just say, okay, yeah, like you're making these things, I don't believe it, right? You come bring her flowers, she throws them in the trash, right? There's this inherent mistrust of these new changes in behavior, okay? So what she can do is even not even just like mistrust them, but be mean about them, right? So be negative towards them. So you come and you bring her flowers and she throws them in the trash can, right? Or she's like, oh, whatever. Or she doesn't pay attention, or she doesn't put them in the vase or whatever, right? She kind of is showing you, like, I don't believe this, right? You come to her and say, hey, you look great today. And then she's like, oh, you never said that before. Or, well, you look terrible. Or, well, I'm sure you said that to the other girl, right? Something that kind of fires back at you that I'm not buying this, right? I don't believe this. Or you come to her and say, hey, I love you, right? And she's like, no, you don't. Or else you wouldn't have looked at pornography. You wouldn't have not prioritized me all this time. You wouldn't have, you know, had the affair, whatever, right? So she's firing all this stuff back. Why, right? Why is she doing this? The bottom line is you've hurt your wife in one way or another, right? You've lost her trust. And so what she's afraid of is that you're going to hurt her again. Okay. So either consciously or maybe unconsciously, she's testing to see if these quote unquote changes you're making are real, right? And we talk about this a lot. Like if your desire is to change your wife's mind, you've already lost because it's manipulative. You're trying to change something about her and she picks it up and she doesn't like it, right? We call it the mosquito method when you try to do nice things to her to get her to have sex with you or to come back to you. Or in this case, like when you're trying to prove something, the inherent problem in that is that you're trying to change her mind, right? You're trying to change her mind about you. That's your main motivation. Now, what you need to do instead, right, is make these changes because that's who you want to be as a person, right? And you want to treat her kindly because that's who you want to be as a person, right? Not because you want her to change your mind or prove to her, right, that you're something, okay? You want to make these changes because you want to prove it to yourself or to God or to whatever, right? So again, she's doing all this stuff. So you're making good changes. You feel good about it. You really feel different. You feel like you care about your wife. You recognize your changes, that you haven't been a good choice for her, and you're making these good changes. And then she's like giving you no response or even a negative response. There's a reason for it. It's because you've heard her, and she's testing it basically. She's testing to see if these changes are real or just a manipulation to get her back. Because look, it makes sense when you think about it this way. If you just made one change, then she's like, oh, you're so wonderful, right? Like, she doesn't know. That could have very well just been a manipulation, right? It's a test for both of you. Are you still going to keep these changes up, even if not only do you not get a positive response, you get actually a negative response back? That's a hard test, but it's the truest test there is, right? Of whether these changes are real or not. Okay, for you and for her, for you to prove to yourself, yeah, I'm going to do this anyway, and for her to prove to herself that, okay, like maybe these things are for real. Maybe he is going to actually be different this time. Okay. Again, the big question she's asking in her mind is he really trustworthy or not? Are these changes really going to stay or not? And her best weapon, whether she realizes it or not, to test this is to ignore or even be negative towards the changes, right? And so that's what you're going to see, right? This is what's going to happen. It's just normal. So at this point, right, a lot of guys that come into the program, they start making these good changes. And again, they don't see the changes that they're hoping from their wife. Again, you got to realize that there's a reason for that. And it's a good reason. It's a natural instinct for your wife to protect herself from someone who has hurt her in the past. Okay. So her best test, and it really is good, and you want to look at it this way, her best test is to ignore or be negative about those changes. Okay. Depending on how long and how serious your problems are, that testing period is going to be longer, right? If the problems are a little bit smaller, right, this testing period can be shorter, but it's going to still be there, right? And even if she's not doing it on purpose, or you can even just like, maybe she's just thinking about something else at the time, right? And she's not even really trying to test whatever, right? She's just trying, it's going to still prove it anyway. If you buy her a flower and she just didn't see it, right? If you go freak out, now she's like, oh yeah, there he is again, the guy that freaks out if I don't do what he wants. All right. Where if you do it and she doesn't see the flower, and then, you come around later and you're like, hey, did you see that flower? And she's like, no, I didn't know. Thanks. Right. Versus if you're like, hey, did you see that flower? I got you that. You didn't do anything for me. When's the last time you did something for me? Right. Now you're that same one up jerk that she wants to be away from. Okay. So this is the fork in the road, right? You do something nice, you're making the changes, you're becoming more trustworthy, and your wife is ignoring it or being even negative about it. Okay. This is where your marriage is going to change or it's not. Okay. It's up to you. Are you still going to be kind and understanding and loving, or are you not? Okay. Are you going to return her anger with anger? Are you just going to quit on your changes because you're not seeing the result that you wanted? Okay. This is the transition point. Which path are you going to take? Are you going to stay consistent with who you want to be, even when you're hitting all this resistance? Or are you not? Right. One way is going to take you to a mental, emotional, and sexual connection with your wife. One way is not. It's going to drive a wedge between the two of you. Okay. And it's up to you. So this is the test, right? And so it comes back to teaching by Jesus, Luke 6:27-36. This is where he talks about loving your enemies, right? He says, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who spitefully use you. Okay. To him who strikes you on the one cheek. So I just did some reading about this. It's not so much punching, like in Jesus' day, striking on a cheek was really an insult, right? So when someone insults you, offer them the other cheek, or just like don't fire back with your own insult. Okay. If I was like, yeah, you did all this, and then you're like, well, you did this, that's what Jesus is saying. Like, let's not do that, especially when you're trying to win back trust. Right. Now, it's not to say you just like take a bunch of, like, if she's cussing at you and like maybe hitting you or whatever, like it's fine to set boundaries on say that and say, hey, like, I don't really appreciate that. Let's talk when we can be more civilized, right? And just kind of step away, that's fine to do. You don't have to just sit there and take it. But what you don't want to do is start becoming angry back, right? So again, when your wife is negative towards your changes, either consciously or not, she's putting you to that ultimate test of character. Will you return good for evil? Will you return blessing for cursing? Right? It's hard. Will you stay the course and be kind and loving, strong and loving to her, even when it's not coming back to you? Okay. Are you going to do that or not? Okay. If she turns you down for sex, are you going to be a jerk about it, or are you still going to be kind? Okay. If she's mean, are you going to be mean back or not? It's really a pretty smart test to do. And women just kind of do it naturally, right? When you're trying to show that your changes are there, this is what happens. Always happens. Especially if it's been like serious in a long time. Okay. So what you want to develop is this kind of really mindset of I love you and there's nothing you can do about it. Right? Like I love my wife no matter what. Okay. So if you develop that genuine love for your wife that can't be shaken, you feel great, right? And now, we talk about boundaries and strength a lot here too. It's not like I'm going to do everything for you and never ask for anything I want and all of that, right? It's no, I love you. I care about you. I love myself too. I'm going to balance those two things, right? But you balance that. You have that genuine love for her, right? And it can't be shaken. Even when she's mean to you, you keep doing good for her, right? Even if she ignores your stuff, you keep doing what's right, okay? So you feel good anyway when you have this kind of deep love for your wife, but you're also a lot easier to love, okay? Because here's the rest of what Jesus teaches there. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. Now, not trying to say your wife is a sinner, right? But what I'm saying is it's just easy, right? When someone genuinely loves you, it's really easy and natural to love them back. So usually when people get married and they're in love, they sense that the other person loves them, right? And then that makes it easy for the relationship to work. I love you, you love me, we're a happy family, right? All of that. So now over time, right, when guys come to see me, that love is kind of it's not quite what it used to be, right? It's not as strong as it used to be. That mental, emotional, and sexual connection just isn't there, right? Not as much as it was, or at least how much they would like it to be. Um, and a big part of this is we haven't cultivated that loving feeling. Okay, there's a way to generate these loving feelings. You just have to learn what it is and how to do it. Okay, so again, the secret to being easy to love, I could teach you some tricks and techniques, and if you talk this way and you do this and that, right? But the bottom line is the people that we love are the people that love us. That's who's the easiest to love. So what's your job? What do you have control over? You have control over loving your wife. Do you have control over her loving you? You don't really. But what I'm telling you is when you love her, you're making it easy, right? You're removing those roadblocks for her to love you. Okay. If you want her to trust you, right, by showing her genuine love, by following through, by being trustworthy, right, you can control all that stuff. You're going to make it easier for her to trust you. It's going to have to be her decision still, but you're taking all those roadblocks out of the way. Okay. So this is how you become easy to love, is you love your wife first in a genuine way, because it is easy to love people that love us. Don't just sit there and wait for her to love you. Well, I'll do that for her if she does it for me. I'll get her a present if she gets me a present. I'll spend time with her if she starts being nice to me, right? No, you just decide, I'm going to love my wife. And two, you need to learn how to ask for things you want. We talk about that in the program. There's that balance. But again, you have control over your side of loving her, okay? So what do you need to be able to do? What skills do you need? You need the ability to generate feelings of love for your wife consistently, even when it's hard, okay? That's a skill you need. You need to be able to manage your emotions well, so that if she does, if she throws those flowers in the trash, you're not blowing up, right? You can manage your emotions better. You need to stop your manipulative behaviors. You need to see them clearly. You need to develop genuine confidence in yourself. A big part of why we kind of manipulate our wife or we want her to give us love, attention, affection, sex is that we want her to make us feel good about ourselves, right? Where what I teach and believe is that when we feel good about ourselves already and we come and we give to our wife, okay, that's what we want to do. Because then, again, we're easy to love back. You need to be able to show love while still setting boundaries. And that's what we're talking about, right? I'm not saying go out there and just do everything your wife wants and kill yourself in the process. What I'm saying is, like, when you love somebody, you still set boundaries with them, right? And you still give feedback to them. And you still say, I don't like it when you do that, right? Because you love them. You'd want that for you. You know, Jesus's golden rule is treat others as you would want to be treated. You know, if you were doing something to your wife that you knew bothered her, you'd want to know, right? And it works both ways. But you can still do that in a loving way. So this really boils down to really having great communication skills, being able to understand your wife well, express yourself well, get to agreements that work for both of you. Okay. Develop. So when you have these skills, that's how you develop this mental, emotional, and sexual connection with your wife. Typically, the sexual connection will follow the mental and emotional, right? But you also want to learn some of those skills that will help create, you know, a more sexual, intimate mood. And we talk about that too. So look, if you want to learn how to build mental, emotional, and sexual connection with your wife and create that legacy of love for your children to follow, because look, the way that your kids see you, that's what they're going to kind of model in their own relationships. You're probably doing the kind of stuff you saw with your parents, right? Consciously or unconsciously. So you want to develop and show your kids, hey, like this is how a marriage can be, so that they're looking for that when they go out there. Okay. So again, if you want to have that mental, emotional, and sexual connection with your wife, you want to create that legacy of love for your children to follow, come join me in love, intimacy, and legacy. Okay, you're going to learn all the skills that we talked about. You're going to have a better marriage in 90 days than you've ever had. Okay, no matter how bad your marriage is right now, you're going to work, you're going to do the work, you're going to have that connection. Okay, so fill out an application at mikefraziermd.com. Again, that's mikefraziermd.com. There's also a link in the show notes. And I will see you there. I'll review your application. We'll talk about next steps. All right. Stay strong, men. We'll see you next episode.